Welcome everyone to the future of space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Today we have an amazing lady with us, Jane Poynter. She's the co-founder of Space Perspective. And guess what? We have a wonderful bottle of silver oak with us for space chat over a glass of wine. Jane, welcome to the future space with wine.
Thank you very much. Can't wait.
Shall we pour a little bit?
Oh, please.
I know it's a little bit early in the day, but
I don't know. Little sip of wine.
it's somewhere.
It's always welcome.
It's always. Jane, before we get into Space Perspective, Biosphere, the journey, and what you're trying to do, can you share with us 3 words that capture the essence of space?
Yeah. I hope you're okay that they're hyphenated words.
Absolutely. You can do like the Germans. You can put a series of words together to create a humongous long line.
That's kind of what I did.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mind-blowing.
Yes.
World-changing.
Yes.
History-making.
History making. You're doing all of those.
Everyone involved in space is doing all of those.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
So we have a little wine from Sonoma, Silver Oak. Thank you very much. It's all yours.
Yeah, that's good.
Jane, can you share with us what is for you the human story of going to space?
Yeah, so look, I think the classic story of we've been looking to the stars for millennia, right? But now that we've gone there, we're discovering it truly is a magical place.
Yeah.
And, everybody who has been there essentially says the same story, that they thought they were going there to explore the unknown, and instead they really discovered our home planet for the first time. I mean, that's the human story. We're like discovering ourselves and our place
In that process
in this
of going
world.
other
Yes,
place.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And it seems to be an occurrence that happens almost every time somebody goes.
Yeah.
It's ubiquitous, and it's a very powerful experience. When you've spoken with Ron Garan, so you know from his stories already how deeply it moved him and how much it changed his outlook on the world.
I think it's really hard for anyone to go over there and come back without having... I mean, the lasting effect of that travel might differ for a lot of people, but the amount of information, that physicality of experience will touch everyone, independently if they're a child or an adult. I mean, we saw William Shatner going up. We talked about how it was special for him because he was primed. He had worked his entire life. He's an individual trained in processing the information in the moment, but coming back, he was really kind of the real example of the impact of what it can do.
Yeah, it's been really fun speaking to people that have recently been up there in this very different way than astronauts have previously been. They get just a few minutes to glimpse this, and even with a few minutes, it seems to have a huge impact on, perhaps not all of them that have gone, but most of them. I have spoken with some who say, months later they're still working to process what it means. And I can only, I put it in sort of a context of the experience that I had in Biosphere 2, right? Biosphere 2, a project that I was really lucky to be involved in. That was the first attempt for humanity to build the world's first human-made biosphere, right? So there was this really audacious idea that we were going to build this new biosphere, and that it could be used as a space base, or even as a way to understand more about our own planetary biosphere, Biosphere 1.
Yeah.
So I went in for 2 years, and I had this amazing experience of being part of my biosphere, and as you could see the edges of our world, it was like our planet in miniature. And I got this very visceral experience of being part of our biosphere and really understanding that we are a single crew
that reciprocity with the world around us.
Yes, exactly. So the reciprocity that we're embedded in our biosphere, they're an active agent of our biosphere. Whether we like it or not, or whether we know it or not, we are. We're active agents in our biosphere. And of course, by extension, Biosphere 1, the planet, even though it's on this gigantic scale. And that was a deeply moving experience and completely changed the way I view the world for the rest of my life. I will never see the world again the same. So when you talk to people that have gone to space, it's not like a moment in time and then it's not an experience that dissipates. It lasts forever.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly powerful and incredibly meaningful. And that's why I get up every morning and want to take people to space. I mean, of course, I want to go myself. But aside from that, it's also because I want to give the opportunity for so many more people to have that same profound experience.
Now, again, we were talking earlier about how going to places to learn about ourselves, going to places to learn about these places, but in the process, really more learning about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that was precisely, I guess, the biggest lesson of Biosphere 2, is that you went in wanting to learn about the ecosystem of the planet and how that system works, but ultimately it was a story about that group of people, how it evolved and how it was an active participant again in that world. You discovered more about yourself than really the world around. Am I correct, or?
Well, I mean, it was a scientific project, right? So we clearly learned a lot about what it is to build a biosphere.
Yeah.
And in fact, we essentially proved that it's possible, that you can take this global biosphere that has evolved over millennia, over eons, on a geologic time scale, and jam it into this little tiny container, highly simplify it. All the ratios are mixed up, right? The water to the air, to the soil, to the biomass, everything is different, and still have a biosphere.
Yeah.
That was a huge finding, and one, there's lots of work to be done on it to make it reliable enough for us to use it as a habitat for future exploration of Mars or whatever. But we essentially proved the hypothesis that it is possible to do. So we certainly learned that, and a lot of other science along the way. But certainly, part of the experience was undoubtedly, it stripped us all bare. Yeah. It has to, right? I mean, just from the very simple fact that our modern life is so, we're just bombarded with impressions all day long. We've got so many people around us. Now it's even more so because we've got, all of our gadgets and our internet and all of that. We didn't have all that then, so it was a little simpler than now.
So you were not living like live on YouTube broadcasting to the world?
Oh, actually it was very funny because we had cameras throughout, and it was just at the beginning, very, very early stages of reality TV. In fact, I am sorry to say that we actually inspired some reality TV shows. Yes, we did. And so we're in the biosphere. We've just walked in and we're sitting in the office, which we called Mission Control.
Yes.
The command room, I'm sorry. We called it the command room. And there was a camera in there, and all of a sudden the camera starts moving, and we're like, oh no. No, nobody's spying on us. So we went around the whole biosphere and put hats on all the cameras.
This is not going to be another MTV.
This is not that.
Now, we have this idea of nature being this static environment, but you lived really within nature for 2 years, trying to control and trying to have this closed system. How complicated, how challenging was it to really live with the dynamic force that are going on in this system?
Well, okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. So, this whole sort of domesticated concept that you've been talking about, we've been talking about, that a lot of people have about nature. I mean, look, I've been lucky enough to be embedded not just in Biosphere 2, but
on
living out at sea for extended periods of time. I lived in the outback of Australia, which is in a very remote location. This was all part of Biosphere 2 training. So from that point of view, I certainly learned how big nature is. I mean, these huge oceans that, and these seas and storms that are threatening our little sailing boat that was sailing across the Indian Ocean. I mean, you suddenly get the grandeur and the power of the planet and all its forces. And in Australia, I also really got, the nature red in tooth and claw. I mean, it was, definitely not domesticated nature. So that was fascinating. And then in Biosphere 2, we were trying to control nature.
Yeah.
We had bottled it up, which is now a whole other thing. Because, we were dealing with, somewhat elevated CO2 levels. So in essence, we were doing carbon sequestration before we really started to talk about having to do it on a planetary scale.
Yeah.
So we were having to do that in Biosphere 2. We were having to manage our atmosphere. We got a daily weather report. And on our daily weather report, we had all the normal things that you would have, temperature, humidity control, humidity and things like that. But we also got CO2, oxygen, a whole bunch of other gas species that we were monitoring daily. So, that really put a fine point on learning to manage our atmosphere. I mean, that's what we're having to do now on planet Earth, right?
Yeah,
we're having
correct.
to learn to manage our atmosphere, which is kind of a crazy thought. It's a scary thought because of all of the unintended consequences associated with that. But we were doing it in Biosphere 2. There we were doing it mostly in a natural way. We did have a CO2 scrubber that we put in right at the last minute, but it was a fairly small system. Otherwise, we were doing it in the fairly traditional way. We had one area of savanna that had grasses that grew taller than us, and so we called it the bio valve because, in a sense, we could turn it on and off atmospherically. So when we wanted to pump oxygen into the atmosphere and take CO2 out of the atmosphere, we rained on it. It grew really fast. Then we harvested it. Then we turned off the rain, so it dried out. And now you're sequestering all of that carbon in the soil, in the leaves. We stored all the leaves. And then when we needed to, we turned it back on and grew it again. So we were actually learning to manage our atmosphere right inside Biosphere 2.
Amazing. And how did you, because I want to go back to a space perspective, how did you go from an indoor little planet to wanting to build a balloon and get in space and looking at planet Earth? How was that journey with you and Tabor and the team? And
yeah, so you mentioned Tabor. So Tabor McCallum, who's founder and co-CEO of Space Perspective with me and has been on this 30-year journey with me, was in the Biosphere as well, on the design team and in the Biosphere. And we both had this really profound experience of being, part of our Biosphere and understanding that it really is the experience that astronauts had from a different perspective, but it is that same experience. I went into the Biosphere because I thought it was the closest thing I was going to get to Mars.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a project that was done by a company called Space Biospheres Venture at the time. So it was an early commercial space company.
Wow.
Yeah, and afterwards we were like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is start a company that does life support system technologies. So we really understand how to do all that part. So we founded Paragon Space Development Corporation with Grant Anderson, who runs the company today.
Correct.
And Grant is doing amazing things with the company. It has technologies on just about every human spaceflight vehicle operated by Americans today. And soon going to the moon, which is super exciting.
Nice.
And then we really wanted to, during all of that time, we were thinking about how are we actually going to take us all to space? Because, rockets clearly are what are going to, in some form or another, are what are going to help us get off the planet, but they're not for everyone yet. A lot of people can't really envision themselves going on a rocket.
Yeah, agree.
So, how are we going to do this? And I'll never forget the day when Tabor walked into my office and he says, "What do you think about taking people to space using a giant balloon?" And I'm like, "Of course, that's exactly what we're going to do." And it sounds nuts, but here's the thing. NASA has been flying these kinds of balloons for decades.
For a long time.
For a long time. And Tabor saw these balloons in operation as a kid. So his father's an astrophysicist. And he went to the launches of his father's experiments, which were these huge telescopes carried above the atmosphere by these large balloons. And in fact, he was on the team that discovered that we have a black hole at the center of our Milky Way galaxy, which is pretty awesome.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that awesome? So, I mean, it's like all fit together. And then we actually, the first thing we did, because why not, was we took Alan Eustace, the then Google executive, up to 136,000 feet under a balloon in a spacesuit that our team designed.
That was the one that jumped the highest, even highest than the Red Bull, correct?
Even higher than the Red Bull. Yes, we stole the Red Bull record. So, Felix Baumgartner jumped from 128,000 feet. And then we took Alan up to almost 136,000 feet, where we intentionally dropped him.
Yeah.
So he was actually hanging in a spacesuit from the balloon. He didn't have to step out of a capsule. Interestingly, that actually adds a lot of complexity.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So for us, complexity equals pathways for risk.
Correct.
So everywhere you can simplify, which is what we're doing with Space Perspective today, everywhere you can simplify, generally that translates to a safer system.
So who pulled the clip? Because I guess he was just clipped and then waiting to be unclipped and fall?
Yeah,
or?
so you can imagine that there were multiple ways for us to release him. So, because that would have been a bad day if he got stuck up there.
Was that him? Was that him ultimately? Who
No, we released him from the ground, but there was a way for him to like pull the ripcord.
Trying to decide who's going to go for it.
Yeah, so no, there was a very well tested operation set there. So we did release him, and he free fell for 5 minutes, broke the speed of sound.
Wow.
Yes, broke the speed of sound. And opened his parachute at 12,000 feet and came in for a safe landing. And actually that was the third of 3 flights that we did with him. And there's a really cool film on Netflix called 14 Minutes from Earth that documents it. And it takes 3 years of painstaking, like watching paint drying on the wall testing, and turns it into an hour and a half of we almost kill him every 5 minutes. So it's exciting.
It's your typical Discovery show.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You're
no,
sitting
really
on the edge. And
it's really fun. It's a little geeky, which is my style. I like.
We'll just make sure that we put the link in the description for you to look at.
Yeah, it's awesome. So then here we are. So the next is to take us all up.
And everything is on track. End of 2024, I understand.
Yes, so far so good.
And then already hundreds of reservations.
Hundreds of reservations. First year completely sold. Second year pretty much.
What I want to focus on, you and I, we talked about that. When you go on a rocket, it's 10, 11 minutes max of overall from the time that you leave and then you come back, 15.
On New Shepard, it is 10 minutes and 15 seconds.
The time that you get at the top is just a few minutes.
Yes.
And it's a moment filled with adrenaline. Like you go up, it's you've had the G-force, and then you have the zero gravity. Your body, your brain wants to directly go over there because that's the first thing that you experience. Looking out the window comes more as an effort because great, the window is there, but your body is overwhelmed by all these senses that's going through. So having the overview effect within that experience is a little bit more complicated. We understand that the astronaut get it mostly by spending a lot more time in the ISS and looking down. Now, on Space Perspective, you're going to have people for 6 hours on board, gradually taking them, priming them, and giving them a storytelling that gets them ready to experience, first of all, the sunrise. Correct?
Yes.
They're going to have a sunrise. And having that time to process that information, they don't lose the gravity. And what people, I think, don't understand is at that height of 100,000+ feet, you still experience the curvature of the Earth and the blackness of space. So 6 hours of journey through, and this is where you can really experience that transcending experience. I think that, I mean, I'm biased, but Space Perspective is going to be the best way to have that life-changing experience. So tell me about that 6 hours. How you guys are going to just change the world with those 6 hours?
I appreciate your perspective, and first of all, thank you for loving what we do. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Tasty.
I know.
One of the things that Alan talked about when he went up for his last jump, because he was truly, he was a little higher, but it's going to be the same view.
Yeah.
But he talked about getting there, which was really interesting. So it was, first of all, because of the nature of the way he was set up, he was actually looking down. He was hanging from his spacesuit looking down. So, he saw gravel on the runway. Then he saw feet. Then he saw the people. Then he saw the runway. Then he saw the town. Then he saw the Grand Canyon. Then, and so it goes up and up and up until finally he saw the curvature of the Earth and the blackness of space. And he says his brain could keep up with the pace of change to where by the time he was at the top, he finally got the scale of the planet. And it's not that big. And what's amazing to think about is that Spaceship Neptune is above 99% of the Earth's atmosphere, and it's 20 miles up. That's it. That's our atmosphere. I mean, that just blows my mind to think about that. So when we hear astronauts talk about this thin veil of our atmosphere or this thin shell of our atmosphere, I mean, it is not an exaggeration. When we're standing on the ground and we're looking up, it looks like it goes to infinity because, it's generally, if you're seeing a blue sky, you can't see the end, but it's this very thin atmosphere. So as people are going up, they're going to get this sense once they get up there and come back, and start to come back down again of the scale of the planet. I mean, that's the first thing, I think. And to your point, I don't know if all of our flights will get sunrise, but certainly some of our flights will get sunrise. And it's going to be incredible. I mean, the lighting is just going to be outrageous. I mean, we've taken video at that altitude, and you really get the three-dimensionality of this globe because you get the light, the terminus going across the planet, and you totally see it all the way across, right? The light going across. You see, so before you get this thin blue line, you get the sun coming through the atmosphere and creating like this sort of rainbow effect. It's crazy. And then the sun pops up in the black sky, which just has to be mind-blowing to see that with your own eyes, right? Just going to be crazy. And then you get this thin blue line. And what's also amazing is to speak with now some of the folks that have just recently gone up and talking about the colors that they're seeing. And that they're actually different from the colors that we see down here because the light is attenuated by the atmosphere down here, and up there it is not. So that's also crazy. And having to absorb all of that, and then, oh wow, we actually do live on a planet hurtling through space. So, our job is going to really help people really absorb that experience. Look, let's face it, some people are going to want to go up for a glass of champagne in space, and that's awesome. And that's awesome. Have at it. I think that's amazing. But some people are truly going to connect with it, and that's also amazing.
I mean, you get 6 hours, and where you told me you're going to be using all the tools available to create a story that can be experienced, whether it's sound, obviously information, but everything that technology has given us, so that their journey is not that 2 seconds up there. It's really from the beginning until the end, and even when they leave.
And even beyond.
Beyond.
Has to be beyond. So, look, we haven't entirely mapped this out yet, right? Some of this is work to be done.
Yeah.
But absolutely, it needs to be full sensory experience. We joke about the bar, but it's not a joke. I mean, it's there because it's really iconic of a very different kind of experience, right? And there will be a culinary experience. I'm sure we have plants in there, things like lavender, which will have this wonderful fragrance. And
I'm sure that there are going to be like catered dinners, special ones with.
Well, actually, funny thing that you say that, because we're designing it to be very flexible so that we can take out some of the seats and you could actually turn it into a dining experience and part of it, or the cozy lounge, which is very different. And I'm sure people will have all kinds of, like weddings and things like that they're going to want to do, right? So absolutely, we can very much customize the experience for people, which is also really amazing that we can do that.
And we can do meetings.
Platform.
We can do meetings.
Of course.
We can bring. I mean, I know that security-wise it would be difficult, but if we could bring up the global leaders, politics, and have them experience, obviously, the planet from above, it would help see, the context. And
I have no doubt that we will take some leaders up, and look. I truly believe this is going to have a ripple effect, not just what we're doing, but what everybody's doing in the space travel industry, right? I mean, as we take increasing numbers of people to space, they are going to, a certain number of them are going to really connect with this experience, right? And they are going to come back and behave differently and think differently, and that can change everything. I mean, that will have a ripple effect across the planet.
There's Camp David. There's Sunnydale, which is in Palm Spring, where global leaders go and take care of crisis. And there's going to be Space Perspective, where it's going to be the next place where the global crises are managed and handled. So not only you're going to be
amazing. I mean, it would truly be incredible to be able to take people up, and if nothing else, it will help them think differently.
Yeah.
Taking people slightly outside their comfort zone, putting them in a very different environment, absolutely is going to have people think differently.
But that was the entire premise of, Cousteau, Jacques Cousteau, that
of course.
The oceans, it's until, at the end, we're a species of flesh and blood. We need to experience things to understand. We don't do well with concept, it says on packs of cigarettes, it will kill you. We still smoke, but I
don't think of that as a concept. That's a mortal warning.
It is, but it's
I know what
it's
you mean.
Not a physical.
It's like in the future.
It's like we can talk about the garbage in the ocean forever. The reality that people's physical relationship with garbage is that I take my bag and I put it into the garbage dump. That is physical for me. That is real. And until this is affected, everything else is conceptual. And we don't do really well on concept. We're physical beings. We do well when our face is against the wall and then we have to figure out how it is. But to experience the planet from above, from 100,000 feet and seeing the curvature of the earth and the context, that is a physical experience that you cannot erase and you cannot undo it. And if it's primed and if it's structured within an amazing storytelling that tells you this is how you can process that information.
So look, I don't think it's our job as a company to tell people how to think. What I do think is that our job is to give them the opportunity to have a very different experience. And, I believe in showing, not telling. So as a business, we inhabit this concept of being active crew members of Spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
And so that's very important.
Because you don't want to preach either. You don't want to be... You're not there to preach. You're not there to convert. You're just there to give the opportunity for people to experience something truly out of this world.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that we have the opportunity to really show an amazing sort of sci-fi future today.
Yeah.
And, some of that not only has to do with seeing the Earth in space and space travel and, the future of humanity in space and all that involves, but also what does that look like for us down here on Earth? And, I think there's so many opportunities for us to have an incredibly abundant future and that we can demonstrate today. So, as an example, we're a carbon neutral company, right? We operate the vehicle as pretty nearly emissions-free vehicle, which is a great start. The entire interior of the capsule is either recycled or some form of environmentally appropriate sound materials. The bar top is made of, in part, upcycled balloon.
No way.
Oh yeah. So really demonstrating that you can have it all. You can have this wonderful experience and do it appropriately for our planet. The same with everything else, right? Our vendors, we work very carefully to have vendors everywhere we can and partners who believe in the same values. It's really important.
I think that's one, from my time in nature in the wilderness, we need to understand that we have an impact on our environment. It's impossible to live in a place without having an impact. There's a relationship, there's a reciprocity that we were talking earlier. We have to take from the environment so that we can feed ourselves, so that we can live, but we have to give back. And we have to maintain that relationship, because if we abuse the environment that we're abusing around ourselves, ultimately it's us. It's the environment, it will figure out its way forward, but if we abuse the environment, then we do a disfavor to us. So having this relationship based on respect and using it in a way that has longevity, ultimately it's a win-win situation for both parties, rather than kind of a linear take-all strategy, right?
Yeah, and this sort of way of thinking abundance and sort of being an active member, positive force on Spaceship Earth, right? That's sort of in my DNA now from my time at the Biosphere, because it was so clear. We could see moment to moment the effect we could have. When I turned a field of sweet potatoes, I saw it reflected in the atmosphere. I saw the CO2 go up in our atmosphere. So I could see the direct effect of my behavior. Okay, I don't necessarily see the direct effect of my individual behavior now, particularly because our atmosphere is so much larger than I can personally affect moment to moment. But collectively, we have an enormous effect, obviously, and so that collectivity, though, collectiveness, whatever the right word is, that connectivity between all of us is made up of individuals.
Correct. Now, some people will think, gosh, I'm going to be stuck in the capsule for 6 hours. What if I have to go to the bathroom?
No problem.
There is a bathroom.
There's a bathroom, and that bathroom has an amazing view. You will not have to miss out on the view, even in the loo.
It will be the best loo with the view.
In the universe.
In the universe.
Yes.
Well, for now.
Yes.
But, because there's no windows on the ISS.
Right.
And there are no windows on the plane.
Nope.
So that's going to be the only one, 100,000 feet, where you get a window.
And you get to see Earth.
You get to see Earth. So you got to think really deeply about what you're doing, sitting above the Earth.
Yes.
And there's a bar. Families, I believe that right now it's 18 years old.
Yes, at the moment we think it's 18. We're hoping we're going to be able to take, say, 16-year-olds, but at the moment it's 18.
Imagine what it would be like if you're 16 years old to see that. Right at that age where you're in that cognitive development of understanding your awareness of the world and what you can do. Because, at 14 years old, you're a little bit too early, too young. 18 years old, you're like, dazed and confused a little bit. But 16 years old, I don't
I think 14 is a good age too, but anywhere around there is awesome.
Yeah.
I think anywhere around there is amazing.
For families who want to bring up.
And yes, and so the way we've designed the Space Lounge is for it to be a social experience. So that it's as much social as it is about the view, right? So
can you share a bit about that design? Because I know that the design is quite different from where you and Tabor thought at the beginning of and your team came back and they warned you in the beginning. They said, okay, this is going to sound bizarre, but just stick with us. And then they give you a design and share with us what that design is.
Oh, it was so fun. Yeah, in the beginning, we had the idea that, well, this is all about the view. You want to just sit in front of the window, isn't it? So we had a seat in front of every window, encircling, looking out. Okay, what does that actually translate to? It means you are sitting staring out the window, and if you want to have a conversation, you're like looking over your shoulder. So it becomes a very solitary experience. We're not really solitary beings in general.
We're social.
We're social.
Above all and everything, we're
exactly.
social species.
So we set up a mock-up, and our design team came up with over 100 different layouts. And we just moved stuff around in this layout, and it was in this mock-up, and it was amazing the difference these lays out, and some of them fairly subtle differences. I mean, subtle changes in the layout made big differences to the experience. And what we ended up with is these sort of two groupings of four in sort of a semicircle. So we now have optimized for being able to have the amazing view in any seat of this almost 360 degree view. And you're sitting in a semicircle so that you can have, a shared experience. And in the center, there's room for everybody to get up and gather in the center, so you can have a toast or whatever. You can go gather by the bar. We'll have a telescope set up there, and then of course the loo, so you can also go gather on one side to look out the window. So there's all these sort of different spaces within this space lounge itself. And then it's very dark. All of the furniture is dark because that helps to prevent reflections on the windows.
Now what happens, I'm a photographer, and every time I see people that are against the window and they try to take photos, they don't realize, but the flash actually reflects on the window and the photo doesn't really work because it doesn't see. Is there a solution for that, for people who are going to want to take photos, or are you going to have something on board that is outside, can take photos for them?
Yeah, we will definitely have a selfie stick on the outside looking in.
No way.
Yeah, we have to do that, right? Come on, you got to have your photo taken in space looking out the capsule window. And we'll have cameras inside. But also, I think we want to train people to be able to take really good images. People want to take their own images.
Of course.
So we're going to be showing them how to do that.
Okay.
Some of that will be with equipment.
Yeah.
But some of that will just be, how do you handle this very different lighting? How do you deal with this very high contrast lighting? And as you said, it's against this bright light outside. So, and behind windows.
Behind windows.
So there'll be some training involved.
So 2 hours to go up. Gradually, you start from the ground, slowly going out for 2 hours. You cruise for 2 hours at the apogee, which is 100,000 feet plus. And then 2 hours slowly coming down.
Yep. And you splash.
And you splash, and you're being captured or taken by a yacht or a boat, and then brought back to shore.
Yes.
So 6 hours, and then the how far off the coast or from your original point? Is it depending on the weather? Or?
A little bit, but just for a reference point, our flight last year landed 50 miles offshore.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's great, right? So then it's a really beautiful cruise back to shore, and I think people are going to want a minute.
Yeah.
When they get back down, and just to sit with
it
and to share.
Full day experience coming back, and then you have another hour plus 2 hours after that trip, in where you can continue that storytelling, you can continue supporting them into that experience.
Yes, exactly. And look, also I think it's going to be really fun to think about, how do we support people who want to do something with that energy? And that's going to be really fun as well.
Are you gonna lead them? Not lead them, but give them opportunity to already do things or connect or
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's important to at least offer a curated list of partners that we'll be working with that are making a difference that they can connect with. Absolutely, yes.
So you have basically every seat sold out for the next 2 years, correct? 2 years?
Roughly speaking, yes.
Roughly speaking. So even if someone wanted to go tomorrow, they have to wait.
Well, they have to wait at least until 2024 because that's when we're planning to start flying. And there may be the opportunity to get some priority seating. Call us.
Huh?
Just call us.
Just call them. So they just have to go on Space Perspective.
Spaceperspective.com, and you can buy your ticket to space either with your credit card or through Coinbase. You can use cryptocurrency.
You can use crypto now. Do they have to pay the entire thing or just a deposit
right now? It's $1,000 refundable deposit.
So even if people don't know how they would feel about that, make the deposit. You got some time to think about it. If they decide not to go up for some reason or the other, that $1,000 is refunded.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you can't lose anything. Just make the deposit. Make the deposit. We'll send you a bottle of silver oak. Make the deposit. They go on Space Perspective and then make the deposit.
Yeah.
And then 2025, hopefully 2024 it starts, but make the call. Make the first move.
Yep.
Excellent. Jane, it was such a pleasure. Can't wait. I mean, I know that we have our own project together, and I'm looking forward to making this happen, but this is going to be amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super excited to be taking as many people as possible to space.
Young, old, from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the fact that we do want to take all different backgrounds, artists of all kinds. We want to be able to take scientists, of course, that's a no-brainer.
Are you going to keep a percentage of seats per year for not pro bono, but for non-for-profit or?
Yeah, so I hesitate to say that we've put something together quite like that, but yes, we are going to be doing something. And of course, we've already partnered with Space for Humanity, which is an amazing organization that is going to be sending leaders up on that. And absolutely, we will be definitely setting aside some seats for artists, young people, writers, poets, musicians.
You can buy a seat, you can do a buyout. For companies who want to do a meeting, because that's going to happen.
Yeah, and we've actually had people buy more than one capsule already, whether they want to fly with their families and then they want to fly with their friends, or their business colleagues. So people, almost half of our seats have been bought by full capsules.
And ultimately, you want to have multiple departure points around the world, not just one, but a fleet of Neptunes. Yeah,
that's right. So we will start operations from Florida.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, we want to start building up out around the world.
Excellent. Jane, congratulations to you and the team. Looking forward to go up and evolve. For anyone, spaceperspective.com, go and make a reservation. It's only $1,000. Even if you change your mind, you can get it back. And that's going to be a life-changing experience. And if you need a bottle of wine as you go up, just call us. We'll send you a nice little silver oak. Bye, everyone.
Ad Astra.
Ad Astra.